There are brand failures, and then there is Prime, a drink that went from total domination to overnight disinterest so quickly that even marketing experts couldn't believe how fast the tide turned. For a brief and surreal moment, Prime felt unstoppable. Kids woke up early just to hunt for bottles. Parents drove across towns just to find stock. Shelves emptied in seconds. Resale prices skyrocketed. And the internet crowned Prime as the drink of a new generation. It was bright, loud, viral, and everywhere. But behind the scenes, a countdown had already started. What the world was witnessing wasn't the rise of a new beverage titan. It was an illusion powered by hype, identity, and engineered scarcity. And the same forces that pushed Prime to $1 billion year were the same forces that would pull it right back down. This is the story of a drink that conquered culture but couldn't conquer fundamentals. Stay till the end, because Prime's downfall isn't just a cautionary tale, it's a blueprint for how internet empires rise and how they collapse. The origin. Influence becomes a beverage. Prime didn't begin as a traditional sports drink. It began as a moment. Logan Paul and KSI understood something old beverage companies never had to face. Influence now moves faster than advertising. With millions of followers and years of viral visibility behind them, they could launch a drink and instantly put it in front of an audience larger than most brands reach in a decade. Their partnership alone created massive attention. Two former rivals joining forces gave Prime a built-in storyline that made people curious before the bottle even existed. And because the manufacturing was handled by an experienced beverage distributor, Logan and KSI didn't need to worry about the back end. They focused entirely on building hype, teasing flavors, dropping announcements, and making Prime feel like a cultural event rather than a product launch. Prime didn't grow from the ground up. It exploded from the top down. Instead of slowly convincing retailers, the drink was welcomed immediately because stores knew anything connected to these creators would draw in younger customers. Prime wasn't introduced quietly. It arrived loud, fast, and everywhere at once, powered entirely by the influence that Logan and KSI had built over years of creating online spectacle. The hype manipulation. Artificial scarcity sets the world on fire. What made Prime unstoppable in the beginning wasn't flavor, price, or performance. It was scarcity, but not the natural kind. Prime used carefully controlled supply drops that made every bottle feel rare. Stores received limited cases, shelves emptied instantly, and social media filled with clips of people rushing to grab even a single bottle. This scarcity wasn't an accident. It was strategy. When people can't find something, they assume it must be valuable. Prime became a collectible overnight. Kids bragged about their bottles. Parents searched multiple stores. Resellers charged ridiculous prices. Each shortage created more excitement, and each restock created a new wave of frenzy. Partnerships with major sports organizations amplified the hype even more. Seeing Prime on stadium sidelines or next to high-profile athletes made the brand feel bigger than life. Didn't matter who actually drank it. What mattered was how visible it became. Prime wasn't selling hydration. It was selling the feeling of being part of a moment that everyone was talking about. But behind all that excitement was a hidden danger. A brand built on shortage eventually has to face the day when the shelves stay full, and that's when the real problems begin. The identity trap. A drink that sold a feeling, not hydration. Prime didn't win people over because of what was inside the bottle. It won because of what the bottle represented. From its bright neon colors to its oversized logo, everything about Prime was designed to stand out on camera. It wasn't a sports drink meant to blend into a gym bag. It was a prop for social media, a visual signal that you were part of the trend everyone was talking about. Kids didn't buy Prime for performance. They bought it because it made them feel connected to Logan and KSI, two personalities who shaped their online world. Holding a Prime bottle was like holding a piece of internet culture. Became a status symbol in hallways, lunch tables, and TikTok videos. The drink didn't need scientific claims or athletic endorsements. It had something more powerful, belonging. But this strategy came with a hidden weakness. A brand based on identity must constantly chase relevance, because identity shifts quickly, especially among young audiences. The moment a trend stops feeling new, the excitement around it fades. And when a product relies more on image than differentiation, it becomes vulnerable the second the audience moves on. Prime wasn't designed to keep up with athletes. It was designed to keep up with attention spans. And attention doesn't stay loyal for long. The billion-dollar mistake. Prime broke the biggest rule in marketing. For a brand to last, it has to own a category. And Prime never did. The sports drink market is one of the toughest territories in the beverage world, dominated by giants with decades of credibility, scientific backing, and deep relationships with the athletic community. These brands don't just sell hydration, they sell trust, built over generations. Prime tried to enter this battlefield with a completely different weapon. Instead of creating a new category it could dominate, it jumped directly into an established one already owned by powerful competitors. It wasn't the first in performance, it wasn't the first in health, it wasn't the first in innovation, and it was simply the first influencer-backed drink to go mainstream. But that's a position, not a category. At first, the sheer volume of hype hid this flaw. Prime looked untouchable because demand was chaotic and visibility was everywhere. But once the excitement started to settle, something became clear. Prime had no unique lane to stand on. It wasn't offering something fundamentally different, just something louder. And loudness works in the beginning, but it cannot replace true category leadership. When the noise faded, Prime was left without a clear identity beyond its creators. The reality check, when the numbers finally told the truth. For months, it seemed like Prime could do no wrong. Every bottle sold out, every launch created chaos, and every new flavor became a viral moment. But eventually, something happened that hype could no longer hide. The numbers started slowing down. The early frenzy that once pushed Prime into a level of demand most brands can only dream of began to level out. Stores that used to run out of stock in minutes suddenly had shelves that stayed full. Retailers who once ordered aggressively to keep up with the madness quietly adjusted their expectations, not because Prime was forgotten, but because the panic buying era had ended. When supply finally caught up with demand, people realized the drink wasn't rare anymore, wasn't a trophy, and it was just available. And availability kills urgency. Behind the scenes, partners who ramped up production for explosive growth now found themselves holding more inventory than expected. Forecasts that once looked achievable suddenly became unrealistic. The speed that once pushed Prime into cultural dominance began working against it, because hype-driven brands need constant acceleration. The moment that acceleration flattens, momentum disappears. Prime wasn't collapsing because people disliked it. It was collapsing because the storm that carried it had passed. The brand wasn't built for calm weather. The culture shift, Gen Z, moves on without looking back. Prime's rise depended on the youngest and fastest moving audience in the world, an audience that loves trends but rarely stays loyal to them. Gen Z made Prime the hottest drink on the planet, but they also moved on from it with the same speed they helped create it. The moment new flavors stopped feeling exciting and the bottle stopped feeling like a social status symbol, interest began to slip quietly. School cafeterias that once felt like Prime showrooms no longer treated it like a prized item. The reselling madness that turned bottles into mini collectibles completely vanished. Influencers who once featured Prime in every video shifted to new products and trends, not because Prime changed, but because the culture changed. And when culture shifts, it takes everything with it. Prime didn't fall to a competitor, it fell to the attention cycle, the most ruthless force in modern marketing. Trends rise fast, but they fall faster, and Prime was built on the momentum of that wave. Once the wave moved on, Prime was left trying to hold on to a generation that had already turned the page. The drink that once symbolized, "You're part of this moment," suddenly blended into the background. And for a brand built on visibility, fading into the background is the beginning of the end. The 5 lessons Prime never learned. Prime's downfall followed a pattern every hype-driven brand eventually faces. The first lesson: artificial scarcity creates excitement, but it doesn't create loyalty. Once Prime became easy to find, the magic faded instantly. Second, a product can't depend forever on the popularity of its creators. When Logan and KSI weren't driving the conversation, the brand had no identity of its own to stand on. The third lesson is positioning. Prime entered a crowded category without claiming a unique lane, and once the buzz cooled, it had nothing to differentiate itself from long-established competitors. Fourth, viral growth often hides deeper weaknesses. Prime looked unstoppable only because the spotlight was blinding. And finally, a brand built on trend energy must constantly fight to stay relevant, a battle no company can sustain any indefinitely. Prime learned these lessons late, and the decline made them impossible to ignore. Where Prime stands now, a brand after the hype. Prime still exists, but the chaos that once surrounded it is gone. Shelves that were once empty now stay stocked. The drink is no longer a status symbol, simply another option in the fridge. The brand continues releasing new flavors and keeping partnerships alive, but the cultural heat that defined its rise has cooled. Today, Prime faces a challenge it never prepared for, functioning like a traditional beverage brand. Without viral moments pushing it forward, Prime must rely on taste, consistency, and long-term value, things it never needed during its explosive launch. The future of the brand depends on whether it can grow beyond the hype that created it, or whether it will be remembered as a trend that came and went faster than anyone expected. The moment hype finally met reality. In the end, Prime didn't collapse because it lacked attention. It collapsed because attention was the only thing keeping it alive. It rose on hype, personality, and internet energy. But once the excitement faded, the brand had nothing strong enough to carry it forward. Prime became the perfect reminder that influence can launch a billion-dollar moment, but without real foundations, that moment disappears just as quickly as it arrived. Logan Paul and KSI created a cultural flash the world couldn't ignore, yet viral fame moves fast, and Prime simply couldn't match the pace. When the spotlight shifted, it went from a phenomenon that dominated social feeds to a drink sitting quietly on a shelf, and the transformation happened almost overnight. So here's the question: do you think Prime can reinvent itself and make a comeback? Or has its moment already passed? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious what you think. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most dramatic brand meltdowns of the decade, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next breakdown.